Hello and welcome to another episode of the Project Purple podcast. I'm Dino Varelli, founder and CEO of Project Purple. And today we have an exciting interview coming up with a very special guest after a few quick updates. Since 2010, we have contributed over $3 million and counting towards pancreatic cancer research efforts. We've also allocated over $1 million worth of aid to more than 1,300 patients and families through our patient aid programs. Your monthly or one-time gift can improve patients' lives through research and our assistance programs. You can donate now at projectpurple.org. Pancreatic cancer does not rest, and neither will we. Your support is truly appreciated. If you're looking to get involved in one of our many events, whether that means joining a run team, participating in a virtual run walk, group fitness, golf, or anything else you can think of, make sure to visit our website at projectpurple.org/events. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce today's guest, coming to us not too far, about a half hour, I think, from our office.
In that
Kerri,
range.
Yeah, about a half hour. And I was going to say something here, Kerri. So, but our guest today is author and pancreatic cancer survivor, Kerri Kinkade. But this is what I was going to say, Kerri. Today, as we record this is kind of like a momentous day for people here in the state of Connecticut, because we are known for the best pizza in the entire country. And I saw this morning that there was a charter flight from Connecticut's best kept secret, I think, which is Tweed, New Haven Airport. It's great, right? Have you flown out of Tweed yet?
No, but I have a friend who does regularly.
It is like phenomenal. I fly a ton, and I've flown out of Tweed once. My family has flown out multiple times because we have family in Florida, so they go more often than I have. And it is like the best kept secret. I'm like, from door to plane and back, it's like 20 minutes. Usually I have to go to New York, to LaGuardia. But so today there was a charter plane out of New Haven with a group of pizza owners and enthusiasts, from the state of Connecticut. And I think some legislators, they went down to DC to try to get Connecticut on the map here in the United States. So we are blessed here because we both live in the New Haven area, which has become like the pizza capital of the United States. I think you're 20 minutes one way, I'm 20 minutes, you're 20 minutes east, I'm 20 minutes west. So maybe we'll have to meet in New Haven for some New Haven style pizza.
That sounds ideal.
There we go. We got it. So thank you for joining us. It's truly an honor. And every time we have survivors on, this is why we do what we do here at Project Purple. And one of the big things with this podcast that I often say this on the podcast, but I have the best job in the world because, I'm not like making that up. I truly believe that because I get the opportunity to meet researchers, meet participants that fundraise millions of dollars for us. And then I get to meet the survivors. And for years before we started the podcast, we really struggled on how we articulate those stories and those conversations. And I think one of the amazing things of this podcast, and it really shifted during COVID, and maybe also because we were, 3 or 4 years in at that point, that we became kind of a known commodity. In the early years, it was kind of struggle to get people on the podcast. And now we've got a long list of people that want to be on the podcast. But the podcast, from COVID on, just really became this like amazing outlet for people to share their journeys, and people that are, doing amazing things in the pancreatic cancer community, which I know we'll talk about because you're an author, you wrote a book about it. So I'm just excited to have you here and really honored to give you the opportunity to be a guest here on the podcast. And it's just so awesome that you live so close to the office. So thank you for the time. And with that, I'm going to hand over the microphone to kind of share your background and your journey. Hopefully your friends and family will watch and listen to this, so they'll know most of it. Maybe they'll learn something new, but for the vast audience out there, this is really your opportunity to kind of share, who you are, what journey you've been on, and what you've been doing. So with that, the microphone is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Dino. And thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm very excited to be here. And I'm more excited even to be able to share the information that I have with other people. It's a great resource. So thank you. I wanted to say it when I talk about my story. Somehow the word journey I don't like as much as just to talk about my story. But I want to say that I am very thankful because I have been so fortunate as I've gone through so many steps along the way. And sometimes it seems that there were just these random stepping stones that I stepped on and went to the next one and the next one. And it seems like it almost was by design, or maybe it's by divine. I'm not sure. But the steps have been woven together and have created an amazing outcome for me. So I'm very thankful for the positive experiences that I've had. It's been pretty amazing. I want to emphasize a few things as I go along. I'll probably touch on them, but I feel like it's more than surviving. It's about living. It is about living with or despite pancreas cancer. And cancer can give you some interesting twists to your life. It can have you look at things differently. It can have you take a step back once the you get over the initial chaos, which is amazing. And it enables you, if you choose to embrace joy, happy places, the light that can be shown on your life, that can have you doing things that you weren't necessarily planning on doing or you were putting off. And a major thing I want to talk about is that you do have options. You can make decisions and you can make choices while you're on this path with pancreas cancer. So there are a lot of things that you might not think you can impact, but you can. And it feels good somewhat, very much, because then you can also be a participant and you can have some control as to where your story is going. And I think that's a really positive thing. All right, now for me and my background. Professionally, I've been retired for, oh my goodness, 13 years. And I spent my career in information technology. When I graduated college, information technology was just beginning. They were I worked as a bank teller in the summers, and they went from a manual thing it was like a giant typewriter, only it did financial things that it was printing out, to they installed machines. They were basically computers that would create information and capture it. So that was my first exposure, and I decided that's interesting. I like that. So there were all of 2 courses at the University of Massachusetts at the time that even touched on the subject, 2 or 3, and I took those. And I went into a career in information technology, and I graduated in the very turbulent times of the Vietnam War and the draft lottery. And so it was just very difficult times. It also opened up opportunities for women in fields that might not have been as easy to get into. So I stepped into information technology, and I was involved in all kinds of things. I was involved in technical support, heavy duty technical support, systems development, training, and management. And I worked in a variety of industries. So that's my background. And retired, I have been enjoying being able to choose what I want to do. You see, there's that word choice again. And I, enjoyed traveling and just doing a variety of things. There are certain sports that I enjoy following. I would just do a variety of fun things. I've been very healthy most of my life. I never had surgery other than my wisdom teeth out. That was it, So I'm used to, doing just fine. Well, in 2020, there were some warning signs in my health. Something was strange because I always enjoy eating. I enjoy eating a lot, especially chocolate, fun foods. And I love tomato sauce and everything. A lot of vegetables, lots of fruits, lots of sweets. So I enjoy all of these things. Well, these things slowly, ever so slowly, were becoming uninteresting. If not, I didn't like them anymore. I didn't want to see them. And I just kind of absorbed it just little by little. I didn't like this anymore. And I didn't like that anymore. And then it got less and less and less. It got to be near Christmas time in 2020. It was COVID year. And so I said, well, my husband was very concerned. You need to go to a doctor. I said, yes, I know. But I'm going to wait until after Christmas when all of the doctors are available. So
were you
January,
losing weight?
Oh, yes. I lost weight. I had food aversion. And the other noticeable thing that I noticed was I was getting darker urine. The color of the urine was darker. And I'm going, something's really strange. I don't get this.
So when you say, and I just want to pause here for a second and jump in. So when you say uninterested in foods, I think there's, so you were just, it wasn't like you were eating foods and then like it just didn't taste right. You just weren't interested in like your appetite.
My appetite was gone.
Just was like gone. And so foods that you really enjoyed or comfort foods, I guess we call that, just there was no comfort. There was no interest in having any of that food. So it's almost, this like, I think sometimes people think it's like a psychological thing, like, oh, I'm just not hungry.
No, because I was never the type of person that was not hungry.
Yeah. Well, most people I think, how do I say
it was different.
Yeah. Something's going on. You're just not hungry. You're just not interested in food. Like it's just like you said, it's an avoidance almost and uninterested in like anything that you normally would like to have.
It was interesting because both Thanksgiving and Christmas, I do a lot of cooking and a lot of baking. I will make 5 or 6 different kinds of cookies, 3 or 4 pies, or, all different kinds of things. And I did everything for the holidays just the way I always have, but I only ate certain of it. Mashed potatoes, they go down easy. So that went well. Just different things. I ate the vegetables, but I didn't see. That was pretty much it at Thanksgiving. I liked mashed potatoes, gravy, and vegetables. And interestingly enough, I still love those. Those are the best.
And interesting, you said the holidays as this happening during Christmas. The holidays are usually the time when people gain weight, right? Because you're party. Well, whether there's parties or like you said, like you're baking, you're making, these things are available to you. So to lose weight during that time frame. The other piece here, I think that we all are probably guilty of is during COVID, and especially towards that tail end, like, the second part of the year when everything looked so doom and gloom and everyone was working from home and no one was really going out to eat. A lot of people gained a lot of weight. There was like this COVID-15, right? That everyone experienced, right?
Yes.
Not everyone, but a lot of people, right? And everyone was told like, don't go to the gym, stay away from people, like you do all these certain things. And what were people doing? They were sitting on the couch, either watching movies or sitting on the computer, doom scrolling on social media. And also, so you have the holidays, and then you have the fact that we're in this, COVID pandemic, which, the COVID-15 that everyone put on, but that didn't happen. So you lost weight, you weren't interested in food. And so now to get back to the timeline here, you start to realize like darker urine. So where did you go from there?
So I called my PCP and I got a telehealth appointment. And in that, I explained a variety of symptoms. There was one day that I actually, my husband noticed, woof, we were, I had just gone for blood work, or I had gone for something. And I had stopped at Dunkin' Donuts to reward myself with a coffee colada, which of course that doesn't have much sugar in it, right? Uh, and then we went up to get something checked with the car, and the sunset was going on, and my husband's just staring at me, and I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Your face is yellow, and your eyeballs are yellow." Which is jaundice, okay?
Yeah.
But I said, "Oh, it's just the sunset. What are you talking about? It's not a big deal." Well, and it went away a few minutes later. So didn't have a mirror. I couldn't see this yellow face that he said I had. So I think it was the sugar high that I just had from that darn colada. And my liver wasn't functioning well enough to take care of that. So I did have that one little spat with jaundice. So anyway, I had the telehealth appointment. He sent me my PCP sent me for blood work, and this was a Friday, and I was able to see the results on my chart on Saturday, and I could tell that the liver results were very high. So I sent an email on Saturday saying, "Is there something I should do differently? Is there somewhere I should go?" But of course, with today's healthcare, that doesn't get looked at till Monday. When he did look at it, he said, "Go to the ER." So January, first week in January, and I'm at the ER, and it's very cold. We went towards the end of the day, I think, and they didn't allow my husband to come in, even to the waiting room. So he's out sitting in the car, and I'm going through a process, and I had an ultrasound, and then they sent me for a CT scan, and now it's late. It's like 8:00, and they said they were going to let him come in so that the PA could talk to me. And she was wonderful. She was a very experienced PA, and she just told us and told me that they found a mass on my pancreas. Well, that's code. I knew what that was. Mass means cancer. And but they can't diagnose it until I have a biopsy. So they were going to send me into the hospital. And so my husband went home, gathered belongings for me, came back. And he was just in the dark for the most part. At least he was able to be there for that session. But I'm not sure that he, realized the impact. I knew right off because both my parents had cancer. That's what ended their lives, different cancers. But I'm very familiar with the scenario. So I get shipped off to Yale New Haven Hospital, and it was not a very good experience. My first trip there. I was there for a couple nights, and I had an endoscopy to both get the biopsy and also to get pictures of what things looked like inside. And I had a stent placed to try and widen where the blockage, because my digestive tract was getting narrow, which is in fact was the reason why I was having all these other problems. The tumor is pressing on the digestive tract. It is pushing it and making it so that not so much food gets through. And it causes all kinds of problems, including bile backup and jaundice and food aversion and all of this stuff. So I had that done. It was a very unpleasant experience. I had a very bad reaction to the medications, the anesthetic. I was like spinning and woozy. It was just an overall bad experience. I couldn't wait to get out there. But the doctor making the rounds, one of the things that I think is very nice that Yale does is they have all of their doctors have to have a cyclical time where they spend making rounds for a week at a time so that they get the hands-on, this is what happens after you tell somebody to go to the hospital. They've got that linkage. And the doctor that I had said, "Oh, where do you live?" And I told him, and he says, "Oh, you need to go to Guilford, Dr. Lim." So that's who I assumed was, I don't know why. I just went with that doctor. And this is one of those happenstance things that, because he was the attending and, he mentioned this doctor. Well, that's how I ended up going to the medical oncologist. She was not part of the core of group that deals with gastro. Types of cancers, but it turned out that she was just a wonderful fit for me. And so I was released from there, went home, and ended up back in the hospital out of an abundance of caution the next day, because I mentioned that there was a slight amount of pain. It wasn't a big deal, but I don't know. Well, the problem was the stent was a problem. So they looked into doing something about that and came up with an alternative arrangement. I was at Smilo this time, and it was really, really good. Very good experience. So I got released, and the next step was talking to my medical oncologist. And so I met with her, and we were given the routine. This is what to expect. The results of my biopsy were I was stage 2. Darn lucky to be stage 2. It's not. What's so terrible about pancreas cancer is that it's so often diagnosed late, and there's the alternatives greatly reduced at that point. So we talked about surgery. She mentioned a couple of alternatives for surgeons. And in the meantime, I did my due diligence and did research. I went to Concade, and everything I read said what was important is that if you're going to go for surgery, is that you have somebody that has a lot of experience and hopefully a lot of success as well. So I asked them for their readouts, because they keep a database of who does how many surgeries and what physical institution does the most of these surgeries, because they'll have a better compilation of information and experience and skill with the surgeons. And one of the people coincided with who my medical oncologist had mentioned, and it was somebody who had recently departed Yale and taken a chief position at St. Vincent's Hospital. Can I say names?
Yeah, you can go ahead and say names. That's up to you.
Okay. All right. Dr. Charles Cha. And yes, Chuck.
I think he's known in that system as
Chuck Cha.
Chuck Cha.
Yeah, Chuck Cha. Yes.
He's super talented. I mean, amazing surgeon, as we were talking about before we hit record, but we know them well at Hartford Healthcare. So he is a welcome addition, I will say.
He is an amazing man. What makes him amazing? Here are some of the things. First of all, he's super skilled, super smart, and just his expertise is amazing. It's the depth of it and the understanding and how he applies it to the individual, to the patient. How he's so calm when he talks to you. He talks to you like a person. He talks to you without having an abundance of medical terminology. And so it's easy to have that conversation. When we went in to discuss with him my situation, and we did have the CT scan diagnostic imaging, he had that beforehand. So we went in to speak with him, and he brought it up on his giant PC screen, and he talked to me about my cancer, what he sees in my diagnostics. And he points something out. He expanded. He says, this right here, this cloudy area, it could be infection. It could be this. But in my experience, this is what I think it is. And he has the benefit of, with all of his vast experience of having seen many diagnostic imaging, and then he goes in and he sees what the patient has. And so he can discern better than many, many, many people what that means, what he's looking at, and what he thinks he's going to see, etc. So we were very impressed, and I feel, and again, so fortunate that I was able to connect with him and that he was my surgeon. And I had such confidence that, I knew that I had the right person, and I had the choice, there's that word choice again, to decide who would be my surgeon. I did talk with another person, but Chuck is just way, way the best. He is outstanding. And I can't say enough good about him, and all the way through. I still see him on, I'm a survivor now for 3.5 years virtually. And so I see him annually, and I actually look forward to it because it's just a highlight for me to see him again. He's someone that enabled me to live. All right.
That's awesome.
So I knew that was going to be my surgeon. Then I start with the standard of care, which is, for my situation, 6 cycles of chemo to get rid of the cells and maybe reduce the tumor. Then the plan was for Whipple surgery, recovery from Whipple, and then I would go on to have 6 more cycles of chemo. And the chemo is FOLFIRINOX. It's very demanding. It's very hard and heavy hitting. And not everyone can tolerate it. So my story continues. I start the chemo. It wasn't great in the first cycle. The second cycle was horrible. Absolutely horrible. I had such a bad reaction. I had muscular neuropathy. This is not good. It basically, I could feel like I couldn't move one of my legs. I could feel pain in my chest. I had pain in my face. My tongue would not take commands. It was like lolling around. I've never had a stroke, but that's what, by definition, it felt like I was having a stroke. And I was just lying there. As soon as the second of the 4 major medications you're given with FOLFIRINOX was starting to be infused, it was a minute at most before things started going bad. And they just
I get a question for you here, Kerri.
Yes.
So I know we've had a lot of people and on FOLFIRINOX, and typically what we see is like, and now granted, this was the second round, so after the first one, it's like, hey, the next day you feel good, you got the steroids in you, and then it's like, a 2-week cycle, so every 2 weeks.
Correct.
You're real crappy for 10 of those 14 days. Or 12 of those days. And then, the day before to go get the second round, you feel really good. And you're like, okay, I can do this. Was that the case? Or was it just like, hey, like you're saying, like that second round, like you just went like, it's almost like having a stroke where like you had this muscular neuropathy?
Well, in this case, that was just very sudden, and they waited for it to calm down. Then they gave me something to help. And then I was able to leave at 5:00, thank goodness, and go home. But it was very concerning, and they knew it was a problem. And I had told my husband that, because I wasn't feeling very good from the first cycle. My first cycle was similar to what you said. In the 2 weeks, the first week was lousy. And then the second week was better. But this one, actually was a little higher dosage, and I had already asked for less dosage. I had researched, and I found out that there's 6 different formulas that they come up with to figure out what the dosage is appropriate for you. It's your age, other conditions or whatever, and your weight, your body mass. So I said, I think it's too much. Well, no. It's fine. Standard of care.
Standard of care.
Yes. So I had asked on the second one for reduced dosage, and just flatline. This is what it is. So that reaction was very concerning. There were 8 medical people standing outside of my little curtained area, worrying about what to do. I know they were concerned, and luckily it passed. My third one that I went in for, they dropped that second drug that caused the problem. And so I tolerated that. Okay. So, but I didn't like where this was going. I felt like I was getting the company line, standard of care. And so I chose to go and talk with my non-oncology gastroenterologist and see what his take was. The net result of that was, and that was, again, that's another choice I made. Okay, I am going to go to another person, and I am going to get that other opinion and see if if there should be another route that I should be taking. And so the result was he had me go for a CT scan with oral contrast so he could see where actually the food or liquid was passing. It was very good lemonade, by the way, very good. And what happened, the net result is that he felt this was not okay. I was also vomiting a lot. I should mention that. I did vomit a lot and had nausea a lot since I started the first chemo and then the second chemo. So he said that he didn't think that the nausea and the vomiting was due to chemo. It was due to the narrowing, and it's gotten even more narrow, of my digestive tract so that the food can't get anywhere. I'm telling you, I could tell when the vomit was coming. I could feel the saliva just all of a sudden swelling in my ear. I said, "Oh, got to go to the bathroom." And I could direct from a standing position. I felt like the exorcist, exactly where it would go. And it wasn't digested. The food was not digested. That was one of my problems. And I said, this is weird. How can 5 hours later there be no digestion? So it was very strange. So the net result of all of this is that he recommended they review the plan, and a week and a half later, I was in surgery having the Whipple. That's how quickly it went. So forget about the chemo beforehand, because it wasn't helping. It was only going to make me weaker, and it's time to get the surgery now, and then we'll deal with the chemo afterwards. So that is a major adjustment to what happened on my story. So I had the surgery. I remember the night before we stayed nearer by in a hotel, and we were watching a Celtics game because they were on. I'm a Celtics fan, by the way. And the next day was my surgery, and I slept no problem. I had such confidence in my surgeon that I was not worried. I knew that this was taking a positive step. It was a positive choice, and it was going to be all good. And that's what it was. It was good. So I had the surgery, and I was there for 6 nights, and I knew what to expect, and I was very careful with things. Like I read that with Whipple, the biggest problem is that the stitches can come detached, and it can get infection. And that is a real problem. So I wanted to be as much as possible to not torque those stitches inside of me. I've always been a side sleeper, and I made sure that I slept on my back. And I had pillows all over the place to help me out. And it worked. It took me a while to get my strength back. They have you blow on these things to see how much lung capacity you have. And that was slow, and I had congestion, and I wasn't, of course, eating very much. But little by little, and I was out of there in 6 days. And then I started recovery, and that had its own. But, I felt always that the pain was such a positive, the pain of surgery. I can tolerate pain if I know why it's happening. And the pain just got less and less all the time. I took no painkillers after I was home. None. I can handle this. I just get in a different position. I don't need the painkillers. I'll just get in a position that doesn't hurt. And that's what I did. I'd get up and down the stairs when I needed to, but not that much. I was mostly downstairs, and I recovered. But the next thing that was a choice for me was I wanted to take a family vacation. This was the whole deal. Okay, I'm going to have surgery. Okay, how much recovery time? All right, I made plans for the vacation, and I am taking this vacation with the family. We're going up to New Hampshire, and we're going to be by the river and by the mountains, and it's going to be fabulous. I love it up there. Well, I had my plans all set, and they wanted me to start chemo sooner, get back. And I said, all right, I will try it, but we'll see how it goes, because it's not going to get in the way of my vacation. I am going on this vacation.
And Kerri, what timeline? So I just want to bring us up to date, like timing. So 2020 Christmas, diagnosed. Sounds like this surgery happens in early 21. I mean, I know you said the
early 21, April
of 21. Okay. So this is 6 weeks after. So we're talking about like May, June, where they're saying, because usually it's like a 6 to 8 week recovery post Whipple.
They wanted me to do it in 4.
Oh, wow. So, okay. So like we're talking May of 21.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It was longer than that. April 5th, May 5th. It was about 6 weeks. And,
so middle of May.
Yeah. And I said, okay, we'll give it a shot. So we gave it a shot, and it was a full cycle of FOLFIRINOX.
Yeah.
All 4 medicines. And, I was okay at the infusion, but it turned out when I went home, I had 2 or 3 incidents where all of a sudden, and I described this, all of a sudden I would feel this pain, like somebody took their hand and was grabbing my heart and squeezing it. It was really painful and scary right here. And I just went and I laid down, and I literally didn't move a muscle. If I could have controlled my heart, I would have just, take it easy, guy. And I didn't move, and then it went away. And I'm an idiot because I did not, and I should have called, but the pain went away. Okay, it was a pain, I don't know what it was. I had no idea what that might be. And it was a pain that disappeared. Okay. I mentioned it to my medical oncologist 2 weeks later, and she says, oh no, that's not good. All right. So from there, I said, I'm not doing any more chemo until after I come back from vacation. I am going on the vacation. I'm not taking that risk. Yeah. And then we discussed the chemo itself, and she said, we're going to look at adjusting your chemo. And instead of having the full 4 drugs each time, you're going to go FOLFIRI, then FOLFOX, FOLFIRI, then FOLFOX. Basically, that takes out one of the major chemo drugs each time, and it alternates them. So I'm still going to get them, but an alternate. I never got them together again. And the one that gave me this this heart gripping sensation. We're going to start that low, and then we'll add to it, and see where your tolerance is. So that to me was a wonderful accommodation. And she did say to me, well, this is not the standard of care, but we think, we'd like to work with this. And I said, I love the idea. I love it. And what I look at this as is it's like having my own personal clinical trial.
Yeah.
It's taking the components that work and making them work for me much more easily than just the routine standards. So that was just a wonderful adaptation.
And you had success then with that protocol moving forward. Quality of life.
Absolutely. Everything.
No more issues that you experienced in the past with the neuropathy or with like the heart, nothing.
I was able, and in addition to that, if I wanted to, the way that the 2-week cycle would go is the first 3 days, because they give you steroids as you're going to have the 3 days of infusion. The first day is I'm kind of exhausted. The second day, I feel perfect. And the third day, as soon as the infusion is complete, because of the 46-hour pump that you take home with you, infusing that medicine into your body, because it's the strongest medicine of the three. So having that infusion removed and all of the drugs that had been given to me to get rid of the side effects have now worn off. I'm exhausted on day 3. And day 4 was almost always the worst day. And then it was, hit or miss the next few days. And then the whole second week, pretty good. I would drive, I would go places, I would do whatever I needed to do, and much more independence. So that was good. In addition, I would, if I wanted to be away, go away for a week. I'd say, okay, well, rather than planning my cycle for exactly 2 weeks, I'll go 2 weeks and 3 days, or 2 weeks and 5 days, depending on where it would fall for the weekends and all. And that would give me a whole week I could go away, 8 days, where I'd feel good enough to go away. And it's a small tweak, but man, it gave me options. It gave me the ability to have the fun to go places. So that was really, really helpful. So I continued, and each so-called 2-week cycle, I'd get a little bit more of the irinotecan, which was, whichever one it was. At any rate, I would get a little bit more of that, and a little bit more of that, and a little bit more of that. Yes, the irinotecan was the hard one, and it worked very well. And I went to full strength virtually on my 12th cycle. And if I found myself having to go through FOLFIRINOX again, I would not go that high, because that was over the tipping point. So
you did 12 rounds post.
I did 12 rounds, but yep.
Wow.
And it all worked. And then I got to ring the bell. You're done with chemo. Okay. And then I had a scan. I'm cancer free.
NED,
as a base scan. And I'm told, go enjoy your life. I said, oh, this is great. But it's weird. It's weird because all of a sudden, instead of having all these appointments,
you don't
have them. It's very strange. And in addition, for me, December of 2021, which I'm not having appointments anymore, we went up to New Hampshire again, because we like to go up there for a few days at Christmas. And I was so exhausted that climbing up the stairs in this hotel with more than just my little purse was too much for me. I could not carry my day bag, my day backpack. It was too heavy. And I was, what the heck is going on here? Why is this happening? This is crazy. And I guess what it really was the accumulation of all the toxins. They continued to be there, and they were just batting at me. But I did not, I expected to feel better. I felt so much worse than I had probably in the entire 12 cycles during December. But then it got better. It just had to flush through a little bit more. And so it was a quiet Christmas, but we still went to New Hampshire and I still enjoyed it. I just had to take it slow. And that's what you learn. One of the many things that you learn is that you got to listen to what your body's telling you. And if it's telling you that I can't do this, then take heed, slow down, do what you can do. Don't demand too much of your body. Listen, be smart. So that was there. I'm trying to think of, I have been on active surveillance now for 2.5 years, which means they take me in
every
for a
6
CT
months.
scan. Yeah, I'm at 6 months now. It started at 3 months.
Yep.
And so they do a CT scan and blood work. And I just had my most recent CT scan on Friday. And I am doing great.
So did you go into the portal on Saturday or Sunday to look at the results that pop in the portal beforehand?
It's kind of interesting. One of the contributors to the book wrote his piece on how don't ever check my chart unless you know you can get a hold of your oncologist. Because if you see something and it's either misleading or incorrect, you don't want to see that unless you can get it resolved. So I remembered that long and hard. And you get something called scanxiety.
Yeah.
Fear of, could you get bad news from this one? And I didn't want that to be the case. So I said, no, I have things to do. I've got to prepare for this darn podcast. And I've got to have my focus be there. I cannot be being distracted by, oh my God, what am I going to do now? So I looked at it on Monday morning, and I had my appointment with my doctor on Monday afternoon, and it's probably the best readout I had because even my glucose was under control. So
it's awesome. I love it. It's powerful. And so, Kerri, thank you for sharing that with myself and the audience watching and listening. I've got a couple questions here. So we mentioned in the opening, you are an author. So my first question here is, so you weren't an author before, you were in IT. And so you go through this story, you have this story, with pancreatic cancer. Where does the inspiration for the book come? Because usually people who aren't authors don't tend to write books about like personal experiences. So was there an epiphany? Was there something that, along the storyline that said, hey, now I will say this. I have had people on the podcast that have said, there was one gentleman who said to his wife before he went in for his Whipple, hey, if I come out of this, I'm going to run a marathon. And she's like, okay. And he wasn't a runner. And then he came out and he's like, he's still kind of groggy. And he told the wife, okay, I'm out of surgery. I'm going to run that marathon. And now he's like run like 7 of them. So people, we've heard that story on the podcast. So where was the inspiration for the book?
All right. There's 2 pieces to this. I didn't really talk much when I talked about my story, but a significant part of my story was enhanced by finding myself going to a support group that is specifically for pancreas cancer. And what happened here is when I started out with the medical oncologist, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it was that they saw anxiety in me. I didn't even think I was that crazy anxious, to be honest, or whether it was this practice's routine, they suggested I talk to one of the counselors in palliative. And of course, my reaction to palliative was, but okay, sure, I'll talk to him. And I had a wonderful conversation with him, very nice fellow. And one of the things that I said to him and to others is, look, if chemo creates a situation where I feel nothing but lousy all the time, it's going to stop. I want to know what to expect. I want to know that, during the span of time from chemo session 1 to the next session, that I am going to feel good enough to do things. I can't be bedridden all the time. That is unacceptable. And then we talked about getting the approval to get medical marijuana as a backup, something I never used, but I did get that. So we talked about a lot of good things. And also there, I found out about the support group. So the support group information came through the palliative organization. If you, as an individual, hear the word palliative, most people, the word palliative means I've bought the farm. I'm not going to make it, and they don't want anything to do with it. And my reaction was somewhat to do with that, like that also. That is unfortunately a very difficult thing to then get patients engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
So I could talk about the palliative thing. That's an issue in my mind. I think that terminology needs to be improved. And there's been discussions in the palliative organization about that, but they still want to stick with palliative because that's what the medical community felt that works the best. At any rate, so
I guess on that note, we've had patients that have gone palliative and then gone back to curative. Like that happens, and that's something that I think I think there's another piece to this too, which I think is acceptance. And I think everyone's story in terms of acceptance is different. And some people are accepting early on and some people are accepting later on. And, that varies in their stories and in their journeys, as I say. But I think that's another piece to this as well. I do not disagree with you. Like there's some things I think we said, before we hit record, like the system is so complex. And I think that's why there's probably so many challenges in that. And I think one of them is part of it is this, like what you're saying, this palliative piece, right? That people have this certain understanding of what palliative care looks like, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And it also doesn't mean that you're giving up.
I think people, unfortunately, and there's a piece in the book specifically about palliative, garnered
which we don't want to give away, but we want people to buy the book as well, right? But,
so it doesn't. It's okay, because at any rate, the concept of palliative and the fact that people only find out about the support group if you go to palliative, I think is a barrier to a really good resource, which is the support group. So when I found out about the support group, my daughter went to the support group initially for me just to check it out. And she told me that these people are just incredible. You really should join in. So I did join in. I was diagnosed in January. I started with the support group in February, and my daughter stuck with it. She'd go on with me for the next couple of months. But what makes a support group so good, the facilitator was excellent, but he stayed in the background because the people who had the personal experience with pancreas cancer, they're the ones providing the support and the help and the options and the ideas and listening to the new person or whatever. And the warmth and the outreach and the willingness to try and be there for one another, just incredible. So I would also say that, I mean, these people, their own stories, there are multiple people in that support group diagnosed stage 4. And actually, you've had 2 of them on your podcasts. And they're diagnosed stage 4, and they go, all right, so what can we do about this? What are we going to do? I've got liver lesions. I've got this and that. You're not. So they're told not resectable. Well, how do I make it so I am resectable? It's that kind of an attitude that enables people to see what's possible. And that also gets into how you learn to speak and communicate with your doctor, because that is a relationship that grows and evolves. And what I learned, for example, was that I didn't just have to take, this is what the deal is. I could ask questions, and if I didn't like what I was hearing, I could look for options. If I hadn't had that surgery sooner, the way I did, I wouldn't have survived, because I wasn't tolerating the chemo. I was not going to survive. But look at what the difference is. I mean, it's incredible. So some of these people, stage 4, 5.5 years and still going. That's incredible. And it has to do with how you decide to approach cancer and what you feel you can tolerate. And, if you're looking for solutions, there's one person in there. When I joined, I remember that person talking about going down to Johns Hopkins in Maryland because they had a free pancreas cancer clinic every Tuesday. And she would go down there and participate in that. Or, they're looking at this. People really made a decision to see what was out there, and they went beyond right where they were. Or they were looking at clinical trials. So you would hear all of these stories of where they went, how they went about it. And it was inspiring. It just fed your desire to take action rather than just sit there and take cancer. There's more to it. So the support group was and has been and continues to be a wonderful place. Once I became cancer free, and we were talking about it, and I was mentioning that that it was so weird that I had felt so terrible in December, and I didn't know. I had no idea that would happen. Why wasn't I feeling better? Blah, blah, blah. We started talking about it as a group, and we realized we all have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom. We should put together something. So we were going to put together like just a little trifold thing, just some tips that, we were just going to kind of create that. Well, somehow that just wasn't quite enough. So it evolved, and it became a book. And it was a way longer project than I had ever anticipated. It took 2 years to go from concept to getting the information from people, because there's 11 contributors that were patients, and then a couple of caregivers that also added in contributions in there. So there's perspectives from multiple people. Some of them had cancer in the tail, some of them in the head, some of them in the body. Some of them were stage 1, some of them were stage 4. And there's patient information on what their symptoms were. They're in the book, all kinds of information in there. So I felt that if I were looking to find out what somebody else had for an experience, I'd want somebody that was kind of similar to me. What stage were they diagnosed at? Where was it? Was it at the tail, or was it at the head? Or what different options did they look at? And that information is in there. That's because I'm that detailed person, and that's what I would look for. So it's in there. But if you don't want it, there's a lot of fun pictures.
There's
Because,
many, yeah, there's so many great pictures and it looks like so many travels. Of course, as I open the book, the first that I go to is Italy. Um,
uh-huh.
I think that was like a magnet. I think it was like it magneted to me. Like it literally, as I opened the book, I just went to Italy and I was like, why are there
Oh, isn't that
pictures
funny?
of Italy? So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, so this is awesome. And I love this. I mean, we've always said, regardless of the group or the facility, or there's always strength in numbers, and that's something that we as
Mhm.
Project Purple here we always believe. And there's so much that can be done in a positive way in numbers. And I think anytime, and look at this podcast, we share stories and journeys of people, and the reason we do that is because everyone's story and journey is different, but there's some
Correct.
similarities in that. And I think knowledge is power. And there's strength in that. People find strength in,
Hmm.
hearing your story and other people's stories. And, this is another topic for another podcast episode. And I've said this like before, and I have asked many researchers this recently. I think the numbers are, I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a very serious disease, but I don't think there's people out there counting stage 4 survivors or, like I get it, it's data. But the other piece to this, and my point of saying is like, I think the numbers aren't 100% accurate. And I think we stay in our lane. I worry about us. And something that we've been really, I think, big on this podcast is providing hope with the stories that we've provided. You have an amazing story, right? Like you hit rock bottom of having this diagnosis, being healthy, and especially during COVID, which now I think, COVID wasn't that long ago, but I think people forget like what that was like. And you said that like, hey, like your husband waited in the car while you were in the ER. And we've had many people talk about the loneliness and all the mental aspect of just being by yourself and in a sterile environment. And that's because you're in there because of cancer. But then remember, like the news media and a lot of people in very powerful positions were saying, hey, if you get COVID, you're going to die. Now, that's another podcast episode to debate whether that was true, but I think that was like the general consensus. So now you're going to a hospital to fight cancer, and where was COVID most likely to be found? In a hospital with sick people, right? So here you are in
Hmm.
that aspect, right? So this whole mental gymnastics that you go through. So, like this story is just so powerful. My point is, yes, it's serious. This is a very serious cancer. It is probably the most serious cancer, but you cannot give up hope because you are not the number that everyone else puts out there. And that's something that we've been really big on here at Project Purple, and especially with the podcast. And this is why we do the podcast with so many survivors. We call them superhumans. Um, that we truly believe not everyone is that number. And there is a reality to it, but there's also the fact that no doctor has a crystal ball. And regardless of whether you're stage 1 or stage 4, if the doctor tells you got 3 months, walk out the room and go find a doctor that believes in you. And that's
Hmm.
going to give you a fighting chance. And again, no oncologist, surgeon, researcher in the entire world can tell you definitively that you're part of that number. And so that's something that we've been really, really passionate about. And I think this podcast, your story in particular, Kerri, but many of the survivors, superhumans that come on the podcast and share their journey, that's really the power of this community and finding people within that community. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for putting out the book and for all you're doing in the pancreatic cancer community. We're going to share where people can learn more about the book. But before I do that, and I know before we hit record, you said you listened to some episodes, so you know the questions coming here. Uh, Given your story, how do you define the word pancreatic cancer? What does that mean to you?
All
And you have
right.
notes? Oh my God. So
Oh, yeah. I
this is
told you
not
I'm a be
fair.
prepared person.
This is not
Well,
fair.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Because I always find myself thinking afterwards, oh, I wish I'd said this. Oh, I wish I'd said that. I am a be prepared type of person.
I can
Okay.
tell. I can tell.
Okay. All right. First of all, we know it's a rough cancer. Okay. We know it's aggressive. We know that the survival rates are not something to smile about, but it is not a death sentence. And that's what people have to first realize. Don't focus on the stats. You've just said that. You know, the stats could be wrong. I mean, who knows where all of this information is gathered and what's missing from it? Who knows why my fellow support group person was diagnosed with, 2 months to live and, more than 5 years later, still going strong. I mean, not without problems, mind you, but each problem is met with, I'm going to find a solution to this. All right. And that mindset makes a whole lot of difference. There should be studies going on to say, all right, what made it possible for this person to achieve this result? Given where they started, and how can we get more of that? That should be the objective, So the idea that, okay, everybody is unique. They come to this point in their life with different things. In defining pancreas cancer, you're the CEO of your healthcare team. Okay. And what's important is doing your research, learning about the disease, learning what questions to ask, be open to other possibilities besides the one that is generally the consensus. This is what we're going to do. Advocate for yourself. Get treatment that is customized for you, that you can tolerate, that will help you, that will improve your outlook and improve your health. That's what I have to say about pancreas cancer.
I love it. It's so powerful. For those watching and listening that want to learn more about your book, maybe reach out to you, talk to you about your experience, that happens often. Where's the best place for those folks to connect or to learn more? And you have it on a board. I love it.
Is that showing?
Yeah, it is.
It's okay.
KL Kinkade .mx.
No, MY. MY.
Canva.
.site. That is my little website that I created.
The screen just got a little dark here. So for those watching, it might be a little bit dark. There you go, right there. So klkinkade.my.canva.site. Perfect.
Right.
Love it.
That is it. And within that, I do indicate an email address. But I don't see myself getting, I don't have the energy to be going back and forth with emails with a ton of people. But, if there may be something that would be worthwhile to pursue. And I have mentioned on the website that if somebody would like to hold some sort of a little group session, a Q&A session or whatever, I'd be happy to do that. Awesome. But the individual emails can take so much time. I've been struggling with the idea of, do I want to do Instagram? But I don't know. I'm not
Stay
sure.
off social media. Stay off social media. It's toxic. I just deleted my Facebook app because it's just like it's that time of year, I guess.
Yeah.
Kerri, thank you for the opportunity to share your story. And we, again, what you're doing for the community is inspiring. Your story is inspiring. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity and me as the guest to share that story.
Oh, I really appreciate the opportunity of being here. It's been a wonderful experience. And I must say that you are wonderful at putting people at ease. I was worried that I was going to have freeze frames where, senior moments or something like that. But, you definitely put me at ease. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Project Purple podcast. If you like today's episode, make sure to share this episode and make sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. That's a wrap of another episode of the Project Purple podcast. Thanks for listening. Until next time, please be safe.